All right. Hello, Jason Satterlund. What is the most hyped thing about your movie, The Abandoned?
The most hyped thing.
Yeah.
Good question. Well, probably the fact that it's essentially one guy in one room for the entire movie, which is a surprisingly difficult thing to do. But yeah, the whole concept of, I mean, it's sort of like a filmmaker's dream to do that, it's the ultimate indie idea, right? Where it's just, oh, one actor in one room, how hard could it be? But that is essentially, yeah, that's the one thing that people talk about the most. Like, how do you keep something like that interesting? How do you film something like that? What was it like for the actor? Things like that. So it's definitely the big question mark over the whole film. And it was, surprisingly challenging to shoot. When you think about doing a movie, if you're a filmmaker at all, when you do scenes, the first thing you think about is, okay, we're going to have two people come into the coffee shop and whatever, and they're going to shoot, we're going to get our master and they're over the shoulder. And then if they talk for a couple hours, and you're going to cut back to the outside of the coffee shop and then back in. Well, with our movie, we can't do that. There's one dude. So there's nothing to cut to. And the whole movie centers around the mystery of, who is this? Where is he? And who got him? How did he get inside this box? Who has him? How does he escape? And all of that. We never wanted to show the outside of the box. We don't want you to know where he is. That means you don't have anything to cut to. And then there is a woman on the phone that he's talking to. And there's also mysteries around her. So we didn't want to reveal her or show her face. So it's all on him, all on his face for a majority of the movie. And man, that was a big challenge to try to pull off.
Well, I found the film had like a steady sense of unease throughout, yet I did not find it relentless. So how important would you say levity is with a conceptually dark movie such as this one?
Yeah, Levity. Yeah, some of my favorite films, one of my favorite films of all time is Aliens, where, it's this, I don't know if it's probably more of an action film, but some would consider it horror, where it's just this edge of your seat tension, but they have these amazing moments of comedy in there. And I've always loved that in films. It is something that we wanted to have more of in here, but it's kind of tough sometimes when you're dealing with with one actor like that. But yeah, I would say the thing about levity, especially when it comes to drama, thriller, things like that, is because if you're on the edge of your seat, right, and you're tensed up the entire time, you kind of want that little ha 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 ha. It just diffuses the tension a little bit so that you can actually come back into it. That's probably why Marvel does it so much, because it allows this roller coaster ride of emotion.
Yeah, definitely. And I felt like there were moments like that, moments of tenderness, moments of humor in this movie where you can kind of take a breath for a second.
Yeah. That was really important to me. As much as I like action and thrillers and things like that, I like to have some sort of depth to it as well. So it's not all just like beating somebody up, or to actually have some true intimacy and humor and levity and just genuine human connection. It's what makes films work, I think. If it's just mindless fighting or whatever, I just find that to be feeling kind of empty. So, the whole experience of going to a movie is to like ride this big roller coaster, right? That's what we want. That's why we go. It's like, you sit in the theater seat, and that's what it feels like. You're in a roller coaster seat, and you just want to be taken on this fun, entertaining, edge of your seat journey.
All right. And when did you receive the scripts? What year was it?
I think I got that script initially at about 2019. It might have been 2018 when I first got the script. 2018 or 2019, something like that. It was written by Dwayne Worrell, and Dwayne, I met him at the Austin Film Festival. Incredibly talented writer. His previous script won, I don't know what year it was, but it won Amazon screenwriting contest, and they actually turned that into a movie directed by Doug Liman, who did The Bourne Identity and Mr. and Mrs. Smith and Edge of Tomorrow. So, and that movie, it's on Amazon. It's called The Wall, starring John Cena. It did very well for him. It kind of launched him, and he was on a panel at the Austin Screenwriter Festival. And he had this panel, ironically, about how to write stories in small spaces. His previous movie, The Wall, is about a soldier pinned down by a sniper. The entire movie is essentially behind one little piece of wall in the middle of the desert. He can't escape. And he was on this panel, and the panel was amazing, and had the writer of Phone Booth, the writer of Buried, you know, the writer of Devil, like all these like very contained thrillers. And I just really responded to what Dwayne was saying. And I hit him up afterwards. We both live in LA. So we met up when we got back to town, and he passed me the script. And once again, another thriller, self-contained, one room, this guy. And Dwayne loves those kinds of stories. And it was one of these scripts that I thought, okay, I'm just going to read the opening scene and then go to bed. And it's like 11 at night. You know, I usually try to be in bed by around 11. And I read that opening scene. It's like, wow, that's really, All right, let me just read a couple more pages. And I kept reading and kept reading. And I basically read the whole thing straight through in one go. I'm like, wow. Like the minute you think you know what's going on, it changes. And something else happens that makes you go, wait a minute. Maybe he's not here or there. It was so good. So it didn't take me long. Once I got that script, you know, I asked him, hey, would you mind if I shop this around? And it took me probably 6 to 9 months to find some funding for it, because not only was the idea so good and written incredibly well, it's easy to shoot because, you know, it's one actor in one room. So yeah, we ended up shooting right at the end of 2019. So, you know, perfect timing for pandemic, or right around 2019. And then the pandemic hit, which slowed everything down quite a bit, obviously, you know, as it did for all of us. But, and the other thing that was tough about that is that, you know, we had the film done and it was like, well, I don't want to release it now because all the film festivals are virtual. So, you know, that's going to suck. So like not be able to show your film in front of an audience. That's kind of part of why we do it, right?
Yeah.
So, yeah. So it took us a couple years to get it going, and the pandemic delayed us a little bit in the release, but it's finally done now, and it's just couldn't be more excited.
That's awesome. And I was looking at the credits, and I noticed it's a pretty small cast. Crew as well. Obviously, small cast. It's a pretty small crew as well. Do you find there's an advantage with working with a smaller group of people than a larger group?
There can be, yeah. You know, the smaller you are, the faster you can move. Bigger crews can be nice on one end, where, you know, if you have something that's really complex, you know, shooting in the woods or something, you know, many hands make light work, I think is how the saying goes. So that can be great. But if you need to pivot quickly, and especially on the indie level, it's way easier to do that with a small crew. For example, the opening scene of this film is this big war sequence. And with that sequence, the night we shot that, for one thing, it was snowing. So we're trying to do a scene that's taking place in Iraq, and there's snow on the ground. We had to quickly pivot to different locations to where you weren't really seeing that as much. And then the DP got a crushing migraine, and to the point where he couldn't go from a squat to a stand without like just essentially almost passing out. So like there was this huge issue to try to get that done, and a lot of switching things at the last minute. But you know, he got some medication in order to do that. But anyway, my point is that we had all these elements working against us. We had to constantly be pivoting, and that whole war scene was shot with like 4 lights and 3 flame bars. So it may enable us, you know, when you're moving, when you have that small of equipment and you place it just right so it looks bigger than it is, it's really nothing to change, you know, a light from here to there. It's not like you're bringing a whole truckload of lights from here to there. It's just move that light from here to there. So it makes it a lot easier. the film I did before this, Kenobi, which is a Star Wars fan film, that was the same deal. Like, and we had enormous problems on that production with wind and weather and, you know, big 40, 50 mile an hour wind gusts and things like that, that constantly force us to pivot in the last minute to change what we were doing. And I kind of like that. You know, you become like a little military unit. You know, when you don't have a lot of money, if you're shooting independent film, the one thing that money buys you is time. So when you don't have any, you don't have any time. So the last thing you want is a giant, slow moving crew that, you know, you need just that crackerjack team just go in and knock it out.
Yeah, I can see that there'd be a lot of advantages to something like that, working that way. Can you tell me what's the best scene about, or what was the best scene about working with your lead, Jonathan Rosenthal?
The best thing, yeah, you know,
Yeah.
Johnny, I gotta say he committed to the part more than any other actor I've ever worked with. And he's one of the, you know, you read stories about this. I had never experienced this before, where he essentially dove into character like a month ahead of time. You know, he's playing a soldier in Iraq, and he basically put a tent up in his house and slept on a cot and ate MREs, did calisthenics every morning, went to the shooting range and shot his gun. He was watching like C-SPAN, like of Iraq war stuff constantly. And he was constantly just watching more movies, just getting himself steeped in that mindset. And then when we got to set, he wanted to be called the character. Now, this was very unique for me. I had not seen an actor do that before, but it was really interesting, a very interesting way to work. And, you know, if that's what it takes to get into character, I'm all for it. I think that's fantastic. You know, he was full method. So it was really, really amazing to watch him go to that level. And I got to say, you know, when you're working with an actor, especially on something like this, where he's the only face that you're going to see for 90% of the movie, that's a terrifying spot to be for an actor. Because, you know, what if you're bad? What if you suck? Right. So of course, these thoughts are in his mind. It's my job as a director to come in and like really comfort him and make sure I've got his back. I'm not going to let him look stupid in front of the camera. You know, it's a lot of pressure. You know, I think for any of us, it would be terrifying. And so what I really enjoyed about that is like him going into character like this and being that committed to it. But also he and I developed a very close relationship. You know, oftentimes if the scene was really intimate and internal and he really had to go, like sometimes I was literally holding his hand in the middle of the take, just off camera, you know, where you can't see it, but like just letting him know, hey, I'm right here. I'm right here. I'm not, you know, it's okay to like open up and be vulnerable and scared and whatever you got to do. And he put everything he had into it. And it was a really wonderful experience to see someone do that.
That's beautiful. And wow, sounds like a committed guy.
100%. Yeah, he put everything into it. And it really helped too, having Tamara Perry, who was the co-lead and the voice at the end of the phone. We actually had her there on set. They develop a close relationship through the shooting of the film. And even they were, interestingly enough, like at the beginning of the film, he's alone, right? So I'm talking to him. I'm oftentimes the one next to him and connecting to him. Once she gets involved and their relationship on screen starts to get closer, she essentially replaced me. And she's an acting coach. You know, that's what she kind of does on the side. You know, she teaches other actors. So she really understands how to get actors to open up and work with them. And so she was fantastic with stuff like that. And it allowed them to do improv together. And they also developed a very close relationship. So it was just an awesome experience with those two. A very intimate kind of film.
Yeah, geez, that's pretty cool. So the first movie I felt like some similarity, like influence wise, when I was watching The Abandoned, was Cube. That's the first one that just like jumps out of my head. But then while I was watching it, I also felt like it was similar to a more recent movie called The Platform, which I'm a big fan of.
Oh yeah.
Yeah. I got to interview that director too, actually,
Did you?
in Toronto when the movie premiered, and that was a real thrill. But I was wondering what other cinematic or literary or any artistic influences did you draw upon for making this film?
Yeah. So now the platform came out after we shot it. So
True.
once I saw the trailer for platform, I was like, huh, wow. Because
Yeah.
the set design looked very similar to ours. You know, it was like very with the square walls and things like that. So, which is very interesting. I still have not seen that movie. I'd like to, but obviously, well, we didn't use Cube. Cube was in our conversation quite a bit. We knew the comparison there would be fairly obvious, but Cube was a little bit different as far as the way it was constructed and the way the set design looked and things like that. But really, we went for more of the Buried. I don't know if you've ever seen Buried with Ryan Reynolds, but he's essentially in a coffin.
Right.
Most movie, and that it was so interesting the way they captured that movie. And one thing that they did that we emulated was, you know, when you're dealing with a small space where your whole movie takes place, what you want to do is try to create it to where the lighting changes and the room almost takes on its own personality. So we constantly looked at ways to shift how the lighting was and where it was coming from. In Buried, for example, he has a cell phone light that's blue. He has a lighter that's orange. He has a red flashlight and a white one. And he's also got green glow sticks. So it's constantly shifting the look around. And the same thing with ours. We had the lighting kind of shifting around the cube as it goes. Like it starts from high up, soft overhead, and then it moves to the side. Then it becomes more, it actually becomes darker as this film goes until he ends up in the dark with only his flashlight. So that was really important to us. And then another film that was a big inspiration was Arrival.
Arrival?
Yeah.
Right.
I love that movie. It really, it's one that kind of touched me on a very deep level. Because it's got this blend of sci-fi drama to it, but it's also has this, it's beautiful looking. But the set design inside the alien ship in Arrival is very like simple. And we kind of wanted that same feel for ours, where it's a very elegant, simple design. Initially, we were going to go with more of a soft, muted tones like they had, but we elected from in the coloring process, we went for more of a contrasty, gritty tone. But yeah, I'd say those were the two big influences for us.
Cool, man. Cool. So I would love for you to tell me briefly about your Star Wars shorts, and was it fun to make them?
Oh yeah, yeah. You know, that's why you make Star Wars shorts, because you get to play with Star Wars. Like,
yeah,
it's such a blast. You know, the first one I did is called The Force and the Fury, and that was a lot of fun. And you know, because you're playing with lightsabers and things like that. And we were shooting up in the woods of Oregon with a couple of, you know, a Sith and a Jedi, and they're fighting it out in the woods. And that was such a blast to do the lightsaber fights, which doing a fight scene, you know, I've done a lot of fight scenes. And when you're doing a fight scene where there's people duking it out, right, just throwing punches, that's a lot easier to do with an actor. But with the minute you take something and extend from their hand like a sword, and they're trying to like be precise with where they're hitting, that's a whole other can of worms that you're opening up, because it's much harder for an actor to control where the end of their stick is. So that was the first experience with Star Wars, and it was a total blast. And from that one, Jamie Costa, who plays Kenobi, and Kenobi contacted me, and we became fast friends, asked me if I wanted to direct Kenobi. And man, that one was a whole other level of fun, because we had James Arnold Taylor, who is our villain in this one. And if you don't know, James Arnold Taylor is the voice of Obi-Wan Kenobi in all of the Star Wars video games and cartoons. He's played Obi-Wan longer than any other actor, actually.
Wow.
So he agreed to do the lead, and we had like droid makers who had worked on other Star Wars films, which was totally incredible. We had a live orchestra to score it. Like it was just incredible. And to be able to, and these droids are actually working. Like they're moving around and made noise and the whole 9 yards. But I will say it was very difficult because we have a scene in Kenobi where the sand people are wearing these helmets with the little eye. Well, the eye things that they're wearing are like telescopes. So they're like this long. So, and they sit off of the face. So you're essentially doing this, and that's what you can see. And because the helmet is over the ears, you can't hear anything. And we're at night on a cliff top. So if you go back and look at the original Star Wars, there's a scene where one of those sand people runs down a sand dune and jumps on top of a
bantha.
The bantha. Yeah, they jump on top of one. It's like, I don't know how they did that because you are almost blind in the costumes. And so we're trying to do action scenes with an actor who cannot see anything. And it's pretty much the same with a stormtrooper because their ears are covered and they can see like their vision is a little bit better, but they can see about like this. That made it really challenging. And the first day out in the desert, we had winds gusting, 40, 50 miles an hour. So I can't communicate with them very easily. They can't hear. They're trying to walk into the wind. And because of the way the helmet sits, they can't see their feet. So they're trying to walk over stones and stuff, and they're tripping and falling. Oh man, it was so difficult. It was so difficult to do. The other thing that made that was a challenge was the very first day, our props truck got in a car accident on the way to set. So we had no set on day one, high winds and no set. So we basically couldn't record any dialogue and we had no set to work with, no droids, nothing. And so the first day was nothing but pickup shots and things like that. But man, to be able to play with all that stuff, that's why we got into this, to live in the land of make believe and use the force. And it's just, on both of those projects, so many fans commented about how they felt watching it. They just felt like they were watching the originals again.
I gotta watch it. I gotta see this one.
Yeah. Have you seen Kenobi?
I've not seen Kenobi. I gotta see Kenobi.
Oh yeah, you should check it out. It's the one with Jamie Costa. So it takes place between episodes 3 and 4. It's right after Kenobi.
Oh, nice.
So the premise of Kenobi is that Obi-Wan has essentially delivered Luke to Uncle Owen and Aunt Beru, but he doesn't know what to do. He's kind of lost spiritually and in life. He basically killed his best friend / brother.
Right.
And he doesn't know what to do. So he's kind of in this, he's just circling the drain essentially in the middle of the desert. And that's where we find him. And we really wanted to create that feeling that you get when you, from the original movies. It was just so heartfelt and so emotional, that's what we wanted. And a lot of people have said that we actually absolutely nailed that.
Well, it's a perfect thing to watch this year because of the show that's coming out. I think it's coming out this year, right?
Mm-hmm. I think so. Yeah. I know they're shooting it right now.
Yeah, that's great. Well, Jason, thanks so much for your time. I really enjoyed The Abandoned.
Yes.
My final question for you is, how do you feel about being included in the Mammoth Film Festival?
Very stoked about that. It's our premiere. We are the closing night film, and just super excited. When you're a small independent film, you are often pushed to the side when there's films with bigger stars in them. And so when we get a chance like this to be, the closing night film at a festival, that's a huge deal. And it's just so exciting. It's a couple weeks away, and we're going to go there and have some fun. I'm just couldn't be happier.
Well, congratulations, buddy.
Thank you.
Okay.